wanted to begin by asking you, Nori, what it was like to paint these, because you did it extraordinarily quickly. You started in February, and I'm just wondering, what was it like? What did it feel like? What did it do to you to paint all of these in that time frame?
It was exhausting. It took an enormous amount of grit, but it was also incredibly freeing, and I felt an enormous amount of grace. It's hard to explain, but I think that I felt a sense of urgency to get on with it, that I needed to do this. The first part came very quickly, the colour, the image of the animal came very, very quickly, and then without really me thinking too much, and then slowly as I came back, just the symbology started to weave and the stations made more sense, and yeah.
Beautiful. Yeah, Thank you. You used the word grace, and I think we've felt that as well as we've enjoyed the exhibition. So you've called yourself, among other things, an artist, which is very evident and clear to us all. You are an artist. When did you first know that you were an artist? What does it mean to you to be an artist? And can anyone become an artist? What do you think?
Great question. In reflecting on this, and just to be transparent, Craig did give me a little bit of a heads up what questions he was going to ask me, thankfully. I guess I never really considered myself not an artist until I was told that I wasn't at school. When I was better at science, and science was always going to pay a little bit better, so I went down that path, and I guess it wasn't until my science answers ran dry. So nothing really prepares an OT graduate for some of the things that they see. Death of patients, really chronic disabilities, stillbirths, head injuries, sexual abuse, hearing of lots of trauma and so on. And so despite all my learning, in my mid-30s, I was waking up at night with a persidious and insistent and creeping despair, which I'd tried to fix, whether it was with medication or whatever it was, but I just felt like I couldn't, and so that left me feeling like a little bit of a sham therapist and very alone. And I'd studied intensely in stress management, I'd shopped a lot, I'd drunk quite a few bottles of alcohol, I'd taken medication, I'd tried CBT, DBT, the whole works and jerks. And I just knew that I had to make a significant turning. So slowly, step by step, my contemplative art practice sort of became my way to consciously journey, to dig a little deeper, to give some attention to the stories I was telling myself and others, to allow my heart to break open and myself to feel. I felt like I'd kind of shut that off in being the professional. So in this vein, I do believe that everyone can be an artist. Perhaps creative is a better word. I don't think it matters what your practice is. You could be a gardener, you could be a chef or a cooker, you could be a window licker, actually, I don't really care. But as long as it gives you that way to process, to feel, to go into the grief, the rage, the insecurity, whatever we push down, then I feel like the well-being, the strength, the wholeness is right there just underneath it to be discovered as well. So.
Thank you. That's very profound. Thank you for being so open and vulnerable with your story.
Pleasure.
I feel very inspired. So one of the things that you were talking about that really struck me was your experience with Michelangelo's sculpture, the Pieta. Has anyone ever seen that in real life? Oh, you're lucky. It's extraordinary. And you said it brought you to your knees, and it sounds like that was a type of awakening experience for you. So I'm just wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, to put it into context for those who haven't been, it is in St. Peter's Basilica in Vatican City, which is possibly the most grandiose, awe-inspiring building that I ever imagined that I would find myself in. Full to the brim of sacred relics and works of art by all the masters. The work itself is sublime, like the veins in his ankle, the fold of skin under his arm where Mary is holding him, the clothes, like Mary's clothes and the folds in her clothes. It's unimaginable that this is a chunk of marble. That's astounding to begin with. But more than all of that, what brought me to my knees, I think, was the fact that as a young mum at the time, there was just really something about Mary that Michelangelo had conveyed. Like she was calm. She seemed to be like, my words are like surrendered to the circumstance. Her face was very peaceful, and she was holding her dead son. And so I couldn't imagine myself if that were my son or my daughter. And so it gave me this very visceral, and it still does now, I can feel my body sort of trembling a little bit again, that this sense of devotion from this woman holding her child in a peaceful, loving, devoted way. It just sort of made me, opened me to a version of love that I hadn't yet considered, which was that we sort of have to hold tight, keep the kids safe. It was... that makes any sense.
Yeah, thank you. It's profound. My favourite piece of art is the beluga whale, which is the station where Jesus meets his mother. And some of what you've said comes to me through that picture. So, yeah, thank you. In your talk, you used the word spiritual. And I was just wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about what the word spiritual means to you.
This question has kept me up a lot at night, Craig. Thanks.
Welcome.
It's a great question, and today there's seemingly so many ways, I think, in our society, and I love that your question is not asking for a judgment on any of those ways. It's just asking what it means to me. Personally, spiritual is not up and out. Spiritual is down and in. And maybe this is because I grew up on land and I feel deeply connected to nature. When I'm in nature, I often feel that's a deeply spiritual experience. Or maybe it's because of my early exposure to suffering and being with people who were deeply traumatized or dying or chronically disabled, and how deeply spiritual that experience can be in being with someone who is suffering. Or maybe it's just because of the way my brain works and I'm a little neurodivergent or something. I don't know. I just know that I'm really grateful for the courage and the willingness that I seem to possess, that allows me to trust the process. It allows me to slow down. It allows me to make space sort of in here and to listen for something that seems to pass through occasionally if I'm lucky.
Yeah.
And is undoubtedly spiritual.
Thank you. Thanks. My last question for you is, you called your process the art of creative living. And you mentioned that it helps you remember your wholeness. Are you able to share of a time where you've had to stop clinging to something in order to move forward into new life?
Yeah. I think I've shared a little bit in my speech of my 30s already, but I actually feel like I'm learning this again now in my 50s. Just recently I've been with my dear dad and mum as they both died, and the grace and grit that came through that period of time. And I guess it came to me that generationally I'm next. So I can naturally fear that, or I can choose to practice holding that fearful part of me and love anyway. And so that's my active practice at the moment. But also there's letting go of my children who are now in my oldest son 30 here today, but also others in their 20s, and the particular stage that they're at, to live their life, to be free, to allow them to fall, to gather up the pieces when they do, to feel my own personal loss or grief around that if necessary, but just to love even more so as I let go. So this feels like letting go of clinging, in order to move through sort of a bit of a messy, awkward middle where they're growing, we're evolving. Some of you know my love for Rumi, some of you. The 13th century Sufi mystic and poet. And I'm not entirely sure this is his, but I'd like to finish with it. And it seems to it offers me an answering for those times. I'll break my heart. I'll break it again so I can learn to love even more so.
Wow, thank you, Nori. You've been extraordinarily generous with your time, with your art, and with your soul. And we've all been very blessed, so thank you.
Thank you.